Good evening, everyone. We are Grooming Growth. I am Frank. We also have Tyler, Corey, and Mark in our group. And here's our case study, Innovation at the Lego Group. We're going to be presenting this, and we hope you enjoy. So sit back and enjoy the donuts, the cookies, the coffee, whatever. Okay, so here's what's going on in Lego. Upon Jorgen Vig Knudstorp assuming the title of CEO at Lego Group in October 2004, the company was actually floundering. They sort of lost their way from their original way they got big in the 50s. There was issues with the toy industry. It was evolving in a way not aligned with Lego. They didn't know what products to offer. They were actually in deep trouble, and even after formulating a new business strategy earlier in their year to increase their cash flow and lower their debt, they wanted to even better their debt-to-income ratio. They actually wanted to revitalize their product lines and increase those profit margins all at the same time. This was actually a steep hill to climb, and it could only be accomplished by reinventing innovation in the company. So Lego actually started in 1932. It was started by Ole Kirk Christensen. He was a manufacturer of wooden toys. And when the plastic brick with 8 studs was introduced in 1958, that's when Lego took off. Within 20 years, they were doing 1 billion Danish kroner in sales. And they were basically part of most children, especially little boys' childhood experiences, and they were endeared around the world. Lego actually started aggressive expansion in 2000. They based some of their stuff off licensed products on popular movies and characters like Star Wars, and of course you got Darth Vader. They also expanded into computer games, clothing, amusement parks, and movies. What the partnership altered was the Lego experience of active playthings where people are putting stuff together and it's pretty durable things. Those things were sturdy, they could take a lot of abuse. And now they're kind of, with their Star Wars and their Bionicles and stuff, especially Star Wars, they're coming up with more fragile models, a lot of instructions. 2001, they continued this trend with even the Lego Harry Potter models. Around this time, they also introduced Bionicle. This evolved into a multimedia story. It even had books, movies, cartoons, and a website. New characters were constantly being introduced, usually with a series of 6 heroes and an assortment of villains and other characters. These were put together, with some having upwards of 500 pieces. Also, many of these characters' pieces could be combined to form hybrid, more elaborate characters. Bionicle had a lot of similarities with its continuous narrative and steady introduction of new characters to Pokemon, which was also popular at the time, and Yu-Gi-Oh!, which Lego also produced. It was widely popular at the time, and as were the Star Wars and the Harry Potter kits. And by the way, what this caused in the early 2000s was a huge infusion of cash in the early 2000s. And I think we all know from some of our MBA classes, you have all that cash. Do I reinvest it back into the company, into other lines? Do I give it to the shareholders? Well, they decided to spend it. So they came up with stuff like Legoland and some more risky investments away from the very famous marketing principle which had worked for them in the past, and that's growing from the core. Lego's identity was actually changing. This was further evidenced by an introduction of Mindstorms. That was a sophisticated building set with even motors. It was being used in classrooms. It had sensors, had a programmable brain, which was introduced in 1998. It targeted an actually slightly older audience than their normal target market age group, which was much younger, starting even as toddlers. The many molds and production methods proved to be much more costly, significantly increasing fixed costs as well as their overall operating costs. And now we're going to segment in to Tyler, and he's going to go over some of the major problems and issues that Lego has to overcome.
All right, when we start talking about where things started to go downhill for Lego, it all kind of starts in 99, 2000 with the shift from their kind of core value of the creative play where there really wasn't instructions to a right way of doing things. And this is kind of keyed off by the partnership with Lucasfilms, and where you start seeing the Star Wars action figures and the Harry Potter building sets that come on later, which were very profitable for the company and stayed profitable for a long time, but they pushed back boundaries of what Lego was and what they could do. And this kind of created a snowball effect that led to the expansion of the Legoland, the creation of the Mindstorm, which were all very money-hungry operations. And like the 3 new Legolands that they created between 96 and 2002 cost 1.5 billion kroner a piece. So, that's $4.5 billion that is sucked right out of their profits from everything else right away. So in 2002, there was a very slim profit for the company with a very high revenue. And as the chart that I'm going to show you right now, you can see in 2003, the revenue drops, and as does the profit, and it actually drops down, and we actually lose 1 billion kroner that year. And because of how much they had been trying to expand, it put them dangerously low on cash on hand. They were very close to filing bankruptcy or just shutting down altogether. So there needed to be a change. And as they hit that point, there were other keys in play. The US dollar had fallen and made the kroner even more strong. So that made the cost of producing a Lego set even more expensive. So Lego was having to charge more in their main market, the US market, for their sets, which their patents had expired and their competition had started creating very similar products at a very much lower price point because Lego still made all their products in Denmark. So as we look at that, competitors are able to make things cheaper, very similar, and because of that, they're able to get their stuff to the market faster, and it hurt Lego, and as the stores shifted, it took away their shelf space. Another thing that kind of happened was there was a change in the toy industry. There was a change toward, digital media, laptops, iPads, any kind of electronic online software captured kids' attention a lot more. And at a younger age, the age, that Lego planned for their users to play with the toys up until about 12. Well, in 2003, they looked at it and said that has shifted down to 8. That 8-year-olds now want to start playing on their iPads. And that was detrimental to Lego because they had just invested a lot of time and money into the Mindstorms program, which was more geared toward those older age kids, and they weren't even interested in. So that was another issue at hand that really just sapped a lot of the money out of it. There were a lot of things that come out of that time period that were good. The modularity that they kind of came up with all their product developments, that kind of stuck with them, and has been critical to their success and is critical to our recommendations later on. But at the same time, in 2002, they were making over 12,000 separate Lego pieces, and they were creating everything in Denmark, and it was very expensive to make that many unique pieces with injection molding. So without changes in that, it was very expensive, and it was just sapping their profit margins. So as we look forward to some of our recommendations coming up from Mark and Corey, we will look more into how we think Lego can shift and still stay true to their core and be profitable again.
So now we'll talk about a few of our action plans. And recommendations for Lego in the future, near future here, and after they implemented their changes again. So Newsdorf, he didn't really, he didn't come into the company as the CEO. He was, the director for strategic development was his original first title. So he actually got to come in and from 2001 on recognize the shortfalls of the Lego company and where they were kind of hemorrhaging a lot of cash, coming into a lot of issues with sustainability as far as business practice goes. And so he was actually able to see that all happen and be analyzed, and he was kind of the leader of that. So him coming in as a CEO to provide direction for Lego was kind of one of the best things that could happen for him. So he took all this in, and I think he'd be open to these ideas. So in the following, we have a few ideas or areas that Lego can improve on again, past what they've already done, and then we'll talk about why. So Lego should look toward technology, toward a technology boost from a state-of-the-art information system. That's one of the biggest things that'll set them up for success in the future. And having human designers is to create new concepts will always be the core of what Lego does. Acquiring the latest tools to help them is something that should not be overlooked. Hiring and dedicated. So in order to do this, you would essentially turn it to project managers or consultants, but you could actually do that internally. So what you could actually do is hire and develop internal project managers, so you can actually find the tools that best fit the custom processes that Lego has internally. You can actually see the best imaging technology, for instance, that can be inserted into the process, and from there, automation, artificial intelligence, and data analysis could shorten the arc from concept to final product. Machine learning has also become a relatively easy asset for companies like Lego to integrate into their manufacturing design process. So you would no longer just be having designers conceptualize something on a computer and then print that out or save it to disk and send it over to a machine. You could actually have learning technology in the system to see what works the best, what's the most efficient, and go from there. And then also betting on big data will allow Lego to actually catalog that immense set of data or immense set of information and use it for future decision making. So financial and marketing decisions can now be made with better analysis on more data, so long as you're using a more integrated information system. All right, and we also need to look at an idea that Lego's already had, and I think they should develop it to a more in-depth offering to the market, and that's online design software. All right, they already had the tool where customers could come online and actually design their own Lego toys and Lego sculptures. But what we should be looking for, and that allows them to order the exact item, and they can put it together when they get home. But it's just the first step of what's really possible with the software as a service infrastructure or program as a service, in capabilities in large tech firms, right? So you can develop an online program which users can design not only toys, but also real things, all right, real useful things, built with a very product, the Lego brick, that is churned out as the most identifiable manufactured product. All right, coupled with 3D imaging technology based off the upgraded IS, the Lego customer could, in theory, create useful models of things that represent real-world objects, like buildings. All right, architecture modeling applications could bolster their market offerings in the future. Right, low-cost miniature design applications could also spill over into other industries where the end product is much too large to create a concept prior to full or even abridged production. Right, housing developments, shipyard designs, utilities routing, and city planning are just some of the potential ways that Lego could insert itself. In marketing to the up-and-coming or unknown firms, all right, the ones that are just starting off, would be a great way to actually get your foot in the door in those markets, because if you get in early enough and be identified as a useful tool, you build a little bit of loyalty with
Hi everyone. So when we talk about modularity, one of the greater concepts, the cutting edge concepts actually of our time, stemming from the realm of sustainability, comes to mind. It's called design for disassembly. And one of the things in which this works is actually designing a product in a way that it could be disassembled in the same process as it is being assembled, or not essentially in the same process per se, but using the same kind of way to disassemble them. Essentially playing very well with our topic of Lego when we look at their modularity of having little building blocks that can be assembled to form a particular structure and be disassembled in that same way, where the same brick can be reused over and over and over again for varying structures and varying things that we would like to build. So this really connects well to the overall concept or new cutting edge concept relating from sustainability, design for disassembly.
So as Lego begins to tackle the creation of new, viable ideas on both internal and external fronts, it needs a method to cut the inevitable costs that all of these new designs create by requiring specialized bricks and pieces. That's kind of what the pitfall they went into last time, was they had all these different kinds of bricks that built all these beautiful new toys, but it was just too much, and they found out. So what we need to do is trim the fat on that kind of approach. So the interface approach offers an opportunity to redesign how the company aims to facilitate that need of specialized bricks. All right, and they can manufacture a more overarching offering of bricks. Right, so instead of saying we're not going to make these and that's it, and we will never make these shapes, what we're going to say is, with the data analysis and the 3D imaging that we've gone through already, we could actually take those needs and find statistically and with very good data which ones could be used more, and maybe you can combine them, restructure them, and that's another thing that machine learning and big data will help with, and data analysis. Right. So that means to find out which currently designed and offered pieces satisfy the most full designs. Right. And this is where machine learning, custom design pieces, and big data come together. By analyzing acceptable deviations from smooth design sculptures, the IS can then help to develop a commonly used and also specialized brick. Right, so you could have specialized bricks that are more giving to every other toy or every other sculpture. Right, this keeps with Lego's goal of staying faithful to its true self, and it keeps the company agile as its customer base begins to demand new designs. Right, the interface approach tells us we should simply replace a single broken tile instead of the entire floor. Right. So much like the interface approach, Lego would only fix or develop solutions to bricks or pieces that have either fallen out of favor with the design process or are too costly to keep making. And that's really a decision point you have to in place the interface approach at, right? And again, having the IS solution integrated into manufacturing and sales will allow the big data and the analysis to help identify which specific pieces.
So when we're looking at the aspects of modularity and connecting it to this idea of design for disassembly, one of the largest aspects that actually comes to mind is the reusability that we have with the different products. Because Lego is in a particular situation of having the old factory, which we suggest they should keep, in order to really have a place to function as a reuse and recycling facility. Now, this could be related to all of the different products that are out there in living rooms all around the world, in basements, in storage facilities of old Lego bricks and things that could be really easily tapped into as a stock of resources that can then be reused in the old factory and be connected to things like automation. As the aspect of reusability and using all of these different resources that we can easily source from existing stocks in households all over the globe, this trend will have a strong influx in the very beginning because there's so much availability, but will then decline over time. So this means that there might be a little bit more room as part of our factory that we can then allocate for things like R&D, for example. One of the largest things that we're facing today is that we need to find new materials that are more environmentally benign, that are more easily recyclable, and more easily sourced as well. So this presents an excellent opportunity to have part of the old factory be remodeled after this transition into a more R&D research and development facility, also using the existing mindstorming aspect of the structure they already are using in order to bring in a crowdsourcing aspect. As mentioned, when we're looking at the aspect of crowdsourcing, we really have this great opportunity in order to draft from all existing industries, because all of the people that make up this crowd will be stemming from these varying industries and bring a lot of different ideas. So this makes it an opportune moment to look into other industry connections and partnerships that Lego already has. Such as, for example, providing things like building materials, which they already do in a very small example, and that may be extrapolated to function on different levels. So if you're looking into the industry connection of architecture and applying different kind of building materials and trying to find new ones and really capitalize on the position that they already hold in a micro example of having very tiny kind of in the living room construction materials that can then be formed into structures just rising from our living room floor, we can actually make that jump to an existing movement that we're witnessing in society today. Because we have so many time and also space constraints in highly populated urban areas in particular, one of the movements that we can witness now is the tiny home movement that is very efficient in terms of space, resource allocation, reusability, and especially modularity. Because there's a little space only that we live in, what is the bedroom in the morning needs to be the living room in the afternoon. That may need to be kind of a common area for some other things maybe during the time of the day. So connecting this to the already existing modularity of Lego, it seems like a very great idea to use the momentum of this movement in order to tap into the entire market of providing construction materials that are more environmentally benign, such as carbon nanotubes, for example, stemming from the previously mentioned aspect of architecture, and really kind of funneling all this great innovation and creativity that modularity can bring and modularity can facilitate into other aspects as well, and make Lego more than just a living room materials provider into an actual home building materials. So now that we've talked about the entire kind of timeline of where Lego came from, what some of the problems were 20 years ago, and what position they find themselves in today, alongside some proposed solutions and things that we have talked about, this might actually very well present itself as a really great opportunity for something that wasn't as timely when they started thinking about the modularity aspect, when they started talking about branching out into other aspects and other industries, when they had things like the Legoland and different characters, for example, as we've touched upon before. This presents a great opportunity as a sign of the times right now are much more conducive to implementing all of these great ideas that Lego had been playing around with as they had realized their opportunity to do so, but simply their outside circumstances weren't as helpful in actually reaching that goal. We hope that these suggestions that we've just laid out will be viable for Lego in today's times and in the future.